Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton Sawn coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Today we have something really cool. Been looking for one of these for a while, and this fella has had a Dero encounter, and he's been looking for information on it, and I guess he finally ran across my stuff. But I'll let him tell about it. If you would, introduce yourself, and then let's get into your story.
Yeah, so my name's Kyle, and I'm 32 years old right now. I was originally born in Illinois, and I guess that kind of has something to do with it, but the more I look back on everything, my hometown I grew up in is Arlington, Illinois. It's right next to Grant City, and it's about about 4 miles north in a straight line of the largest man-made mound in North America. It's called Monk's Mound. It's in Cahokia, Illinois, and it's it's a pretty cool place to visit if you're ever out in that area. There's all sorts of I guess what I'd call out of place artifacts. They even at the museum there, they've got some giant axe heads and stuff like that. Celts is what they call them. That are, they're so big it'd take a dude 13 or 10 foot tall to wield one of these, and so I was always kind of interested in that stuff growing up. But so my first memory of I ever have of this house that we had. My dad had this house built, which is I looked on Google Earth, and it's a 4 mile line north. If those mounds are set up on a ley line or whatever, it's running north, south, east, and west, and basically like a big pyramid out of dirt. And that's where the house is. So looking back, I kind of would think that had something to do with the encounter, the experiences I had, but, I can't say for sure. But my earliest memory of being about 4 or 5 years old, a lot like yours, is seeing this thing. And, my whole life, I just remember thinking it was an elephant head or a dream, or, I just dreamt about elephant heads all the time, and didn't have any real frame of reference for what was going on to me. And I guess the experience that I remember, I'll get into that first. I remember, my parents were going through a divorce right around that time. So I'd be, in and out of being sad, and, my mom would be gone, and, they'd get in a fight or something like that. And I'd usually go in their room and sleep on their bed. A lot of the times, because it's bigger than my bed and all, and so I'd sleep and take naps in their bed a lot, and that's kind of when I always remember being during the day, like during when I was taking naps and stuff. I don't really remember being at nighttime, but I remember seeing these faces and not really being particularly terrified or traumatized by it, but I remember them talking to me, and I don't really know what they were saying, but I do remember that they were, having either conversations or them telling me stuff, and it's really vague, more of like a vague idea that they were talking to me, because I could, I'd draw a picture of the face if I could ever maybe scan a picture that I draw and send it to you, but I had these experiences, and I remember waking up from them, or whether or not I was actually having it happen to me while I was awake. But I remember when these things were gone, or if I would wake up in bed, I would fall. I remember the distinct feeling of falling about 3 feet from being, like floating in the air. And it was such a common occurrence. It was just kind of, I remember thinking when I was a kid, I just float when I sleep. So that's the first real frame of reference that I had, or just the idea of this, this elephant head person, or I didn't even really think it was a person back when I was really young, and so I started to have, I've had not a horrible life, but I've my sister died a while ago, and parents were divorced, and I've been in and out of not major trouble, but messed around with drugs a few times and alcohol and all that stuff. But, I'm saved now, and I don't have the same experiences as far as the supernatural stuff goes, or whatever these things are not in the same ways, but so I went pretty much my whole life not really understanding it, but I was always kind of interested in the occult growing up, and my dad was a Freemason. He joined the lodge when I was about 15 years old, I think, and then I joined DMLA because of he wanted me to get involved with the lodge and all that stuff, and that's for anyone that doesn't know what DMLA is, I mean, it's pretty easy to figure it out. It's just masonry for young kids, basically under 18. You could be up to 21 and still be a DMLA, but so I was involved with DMLA early on, and when I turned 18, I became a Mason, and joined the same lodge that my dad was in. And all around this time, it's kind of a hard thing to explain. I'm covered in tattoos, pretty much from my neck to my hands, chest and back and all that. And they're all demonic. I mean, I've got a demonic sigil tattooed on my chest when I was about 17 years old, because I was, like I said, just kind of interested in the occult and not really understanding what it is, just thinking it was cool, or I was just so influenced to do it, I guess is the best way to say it. I don't really have a good explanation. So I got Latin. I've got a lot of Latin phrases tattooed on me, big Latin letters. I got Veritas, which means truth, on my chest, and Temet Nosce on my shoulder, which is it's Latin for know thyself, if anyone's familiar with the Matrix and all. That's the Oracle of Delphi. That was written above the Oracle of Delphi, the door. And I didn't really know much of that stuff. I didn't really know about it when I got the tattoos, and later on, the more I studied the occult, I started to realize, like, holy crap, all these things are connected. It's just too much to be a coincidence. And that's when I joined the Army right when I was 18. I never was in combat or anything horrific or anything like that. I had a pretty easy tour. But at the same time, I have missing time from when I was in the Army. I was stationed in Hawaii for a year, and I went to basic training at Fort Knox. And I haven't found a lot of information on any kind of MK Ultra or anything going on at Fort Knox. I've heard of a few other people that have mentioned it, that they were doing experiments on people at Fort Knox around the same time, and it's nothing I could verify. It's only rumors I've heard from other people. But I feel like there's something that I was a part of something, some type of programming throughout my whole experience in the Army, which is a whole other story, but I guess still kind of relevant. I got out of the Army in 2007, and just kind of was doing odd jobs here and there, and went to culinary school. And my sister died a little bit after I got out of the Army, and that was kind of, I guess, a big changing point in my life. Everything's, if you imagine a sibling dying or whatever, that's, it's a big deal to go through. But I moved out here to North Carolina, where I'm at now. Shortly after that, is my mom moved out here, and I really liked it when I came out here. And I was before I was saved, I was, like I said, I was really into the occult and I'm friends with a lot of hippies and stuff like that. So it's a cool place to hang out and just smoke pot with all my hippie friends, and didn't really have much going on, and worked at restaurants. And I had a friend that was really into DMT. I don't know if you know much about DMT, or if you've studied. Have you ever looked into?
No, what is it?
Dimethyltryptamine and the whole. Well, it's a drug. Comes, I guess, Joe Rogan talks about it all the time. If you ever listen to Joe Rogan's podcast or anything, I don't like him. I'm not endorsing him or anything, but he loves DMT. He's pushing it real hardcore. But it's dimethyltryptamine. It comes from a mimosa bark. And there's a few other plants. Allegedly, everything has DMT in it. That's what the DMT freaks will tell you. Like, oh, it's everywhere, and it's the spirit molecule, and it'll they'll tell you it'll take you to other dimensions and all this stuff. Well,
yeah, I guess I have heard about that.
Yeah, right. So I was curious about it enough and studying it, and I'd done mushrooms before too, and acid and stuff when I was in Hawaii, and made poor decisions the whole time, and but I knew that there was something to this DMT, and there's a lot of other guys out there, Terrence McKenna, that talk it up, that are all part of the whole. They're trying to push this and subvert morality in America by pushing these drugs on people. Come to find out, I learned all this later, but so I was hanging out with a buddy at a hippie fest or whatever, and he had some DMT, and I was really looking forward to it, so I go ahead and smoke this DMT. And the way people talk about it is pretty sad. You can look up any videos all day long. Guys have talk about the DMT experiences and all that on YouTube, and there's a lot of them out there. And everyone basically sees entities. That's the kind of the common denominator between all these experiences, and whether there's tons of different entities. People talk about gnomes and jesters. That's a big one. People see like clown jesters and stuff like that. And I had I didn't really think I was going to see anything. I just wanted to have the experience. I wasn't going in there with anything in mind. Really, I was trying to clear my mind, and just like what the hippies tell you to do. And so I smoked this DMT, and it looks like you're getting shot into like another dimension, kind of. It's just like a big tie-dye T-shirt, a bunch of shapes and colors and all this stuff. But pretty much as soon as I did it, I saw an elephant face. I saw an elephant-headed person, and it was kind of like dancing around in front of me and telling me I was, the savior of humanity, and the chosen one, and all this garbage, and just talking me up, just telling you every good thing that you ever wanted to hear about yourself, basically. And at the same time, I kind of noticed at the bottom of my sight, my vision or whatever, that there was another face, and it was kind of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Cthulhu, but it was like an octopus-headed person. And I was seeing these at the same time. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was different positions. But this elephant-headed thing was sitting there talking to me, and that's when my memories of when I was a kid just started flooding. Just like, like as soon as I got done with the trip or whatever, I was, my heart was pounding, and I was, really freaked out, because I'd started to remember, being a kid, floating in the air and seeing these elephant heads all around me, and that was, that just kind of shook me up a little bit and made me want to know what the hell is going on with this. It can't be a coincidence that that's what I saw. And then the more you research it, you learn about Ganesh. That's what the hippies would tell you. Oh, it's Ganesh. And it's a Hindu god, and he's a god of obstacles and all that. I know you looked into that a little bit, because it's pretty obvious. That's what these things have portrayed themselves as. They want to portray themselves as some type of deity or a god or something like that. And
well, the one I saw, it was definitely a man.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But if you go, if one of those things showed up, let's say even 100 years ago, to a tribe somewhere in India or something like that, and was wearing gold necklaces and telling everyone that they were a god, that's what they're going to believe.
Yeah. Did you ever see any of the technology, like the one where he had the wand?
I don't remember. I don't particularly remember seeing anything with like a wand or any specific type of technology like that. Until I saw your video and started hearing you talk about the Deros and all that, which is crazy, because I'm telling you, man, I tried to do a lot of research. I searched it and tried to, elephant-headed man and all this stuff, and I wasn't finding anything. And this was only like maybe less than a year ago. I don't know if it was, they were hiding your videos or something like that, but I was looking and I couldn't find it. And then all of a sudden, a couple of days ago, I saw your, saw it on a YouTube recommended feed or whatever, and it had that picture that you put from that book, I Remember Lemuria. And it just, at the same time, I had that sinking feeling in my stomach, like, when I saw that picture, that was it. That whatever, whoever drew that picture of that thing, that's what I saw. I mean, we saw the same thing, there's no doubt in my mind. And the sometime before that, when I kind of, after the DMT experience, this was right before the movie Prometheus came out. Have you seen Prometheus? That's the Alien prequel.
Yeah, I think I saw it. Yeah, they had some kind of long nose, but the nose was way too big. Yeah, if I remember correctly.
It's when I saw that, it just kind of sparked something. When I saw the picture from that, the preview from that movie, seeing that just kind of really freaked me out, made me uneasy, and then I, with all these other experiences, and I assumed, when I went and saw that movie and started doing all the research into the folklore of whatever the engineers, is what they call them. H.R. Giger came up with all the artwork for the Alien movies and a lot of other stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. He's a real creepy old Swedish guy. I think he's Swedish, but he drew all those weird pictures of the aliens and stuff like that real early on, and that's what gave Ridley Scott the inspiration to make the movies. But the engineers have the one in Prometheus is different than the one in the first Alien movie, and that was when I was kind of doubting myself and thinking like, well, maybe I just saw the Alien movie when I was a kid and had nightmares or something about it, but it's still different. It's still different than that, but similar enough to kind of spark my memory and get me thinking about it, I guess. But just if you go back and look at the pictures of the space jockey, is what they call the first guy in the first Alien movie, and to me it looks similar enough to an elephant-headed guy to feel like that's what they were trying to portray,
Right. Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. And in the movie, it's a form of a suit. They're wearing like an apparatus. It's a mask, and it's just like a giant guy underneath it. So I've kind of, I think your theory about the nose and ears growing, the older you get, makes more sense than what I was previously thinking, that somehow these things are, had exoskeleton suits or something that made them look like that. But either way, I mean, there's just too much there for me to not connect those dots, and just a real uneasy feeling still whenever I see that, whenever I see that face or anything of the sort. It just kind of really wrenches at me. I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's just that gut feeling in your stomach that something's not right about it or something's there.
Oh yeah, because they were coming to take you.
Yeah.
There's been other stories that I covered that they got took, and and one of the guys ended up like 6 months later. He was wandering on the streets in New York and doesn't remember how he got there.
I listened to that. Yeah, I was listening to that story the other day. I've tried to listen to most of your videos. I can listen to things that work on work computer.
I mean, if something hadn't intervened in my case, they probably would have took me.
Yeah. So do you think, I've been thinking a lot about your story, so do you think it was Jesus that saved you? Or like, the Lion, they call him the Lion of Judah. That's what I told my friends.
That or an angelic being or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it had to have been something good to stop them.
The cherubim, yeah. Right. And so, I've got
they were scared of it, just put it that way. When the thing roared, it scared me and them. Even the shadow man that opened the door up in the corner. And I don't know if they were working together or what, but when he grabbed me and put my arm behind my back, the long-nosed dude, and he stuck that thing inside of my head, and then that door opened up there, and then that's when the roar happened, and the shadow being looked over that way and leaned back like it scared him. And then next thing I know, they were gone. And thank goodness, because I couldn't imagine what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Did the one you saw have blue around the nose?
That the more you started mentioning stuff like that, I've been trying to, go through my memories and, without trying to force anything. I don't want to remember something I don't really remember. I kind of remember everything being in black and white somehow. Like, it's kind of hard to explain because I was so young, and I just kind of took it face value, or or maybe not. I just thought it was a dream. I don't know what I really thought. I was only 5 years old, didn't really know what to make of it. I just thought I was seeing elephant heads all the time. And I remember walking around almost like an endless white plane, like kind of in the Matrix when Neo's there with Morpheus and watching the TV and all that. It's just all white everywhere you go. Every direction you look, you see nothing but white, like kind of glowing white. And I remember that at the same time, but it's kind of just shady. It's loose. It's not like that. They were using something on me, because that's the other thing I was going to get into is the whole electronic. I haven't seen any type of that technology, but just here recently, even before I saw your video about the Dero and stuff, I've been picking up and researching the history of like electronic warfare, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. But there's evidence going back to 1810, I think, is when this guy wrote a book called Illustrations of Madness. Have you heard of that guy? I can't remember his name. Apparently he was in a insane asylum for a while, but he was in 1810. He coined the phrase influencing machine, I think, is what he called it, or air loom, like an AIRLOOM, because he said it would weave. Said it was a machine that would weave electromagnetic waves together like air, like making a blanket out of air or something, and it would direct it at people. And
Shaver talked about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So this guy, the earliest I've found anything about it was 1810. If you look up the influencing machine, there's a book some lady wrote that's pretty much, I think they just tried to put a book out there with that word on it to try to take up the search terms. But if you type in 1810 heirloom or influencing machine, you'll find that guy's book, Illustrations of Madness, which the guy was apparently, they try to say that he was crazy, but I mean, if you read the book and look at the illustrations, I don't think crazy people can really, be that sophisticated or, that, there's a quality to it that I don't think is crazy people, you know what I mean? I think they were really, messing with him. And, so Shaver was talking about the same thing about these machines underground that were, electromagnetic machines that influence people. And now we have people left and right. It's almost once a month now I hear a story about someone who, killed someone because they're hearing voices in their head. Or there was a woman that got shot on her way to the White House because she said Obama was trying to talk to her and telling her to come to the White House. And that naval yard shooter, he was saying that he was being hit with a EMF weapon, and he was hearing voices in his
I remember
head.
that. Yeah.
There's so many of those stories. I
believed him. Everybody else was like he's crazy, but I think I covered a story where someone was working in a factory and they're claiming that they were hearing stuff and like voices, and and that's kind of when it started for them.
Yeah, I definitely know there's something to that. I've experienced that, not voices per se. Maybe a few phrases here and there that I've known weren't my own internal dialogue,
Right.
And it wasn't anything super coherent or like a message or anything, but it was definitely like a few words and sounds and stuff that just can't place, and I didn't think were in my own. I was making them up in my own mind. I sounded like I really heard them, but nothing else was going on. So I know there's something to it. It's hard to put your finger on, and makes you sound crazier than hell when you try to let people in on it. But I'm just trying to compile as much information on all this stuff as I can. So if I do go to someone and talk to them, you don't sound crazy because you have so much evidence of other people's testimony that tries to try to validate yourself, I guess, in some way. But that's kind of what your story did for me, because when I was listening to your story, I felt so relieved that here's someone else who at least saw the same entity or whatever they are, And then I listened to one of your other stories, one of the guys that you talked to about him seeing him in his house, and so we've had, my wife told me a few weeks ago that, I wasn't here for a night. I was taking some classes in Tennessee, and when she was home alone, she told me that something crawled in bed with her and like tried, she was half asleep and thought it was me, and something crawled in bed with her and, was trying to cuddle with her.
Dang.
She realized it couldn't have been me, So these things are definitely out there, and they're still, whatever it is. That might have just been a shadow guy, or, I don't know what that was. She didn't really see it. But that's, and I mean, there's, I've got a lot more stories. I don't know how relevant they are to the Dero thing, but, demonic. I seem to be a hub for demonic activity. I kind of have been my whole life looking back on it. And, thank God I am saved. I believe Jesus, and that's why we're saved. He died for us. That's the important part, But
did you ever think about why me?
Yeah, constantly, man. That's like,
yeah.
Because I mean, I'm not trying to play the victim here or anything, but like I said, I'm covered in these tattoos, and I was influenced to get them. That's the only way I could put it. Now, I was 16 when I got my first one, and illegally, I knew guys that had tattoo guns and stuff that were just kind of scummy drug dealers and stuff that were doing tattoos out of their house and hanging out with their own crowd. So I just started getting all these esoteric symbols and everything tattooed on me, and that might be, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. To me, it seems like I was influenced to get these tattoos, and
well, they can throw thoughts at you.
Right.
There was one story I had where they were talking about it was one of Shaver's stories, I think, and they had like technology, underground in those caverns and stuff that the Dero had lived in, and they could point it up and target someone and throw thoughts at them, and that's how I think they got. They even was able to get someone out of jail. They influenced the guard to open the door and lead the person out, and then they went out and then went out to this mountain like in behind where the jail was, and they took the person into the underground caverns. Yeah, and then he lived there for like 7 years or something like that. And I mean, that's what he said. And it would be hard to believe it if I hadn't seen a Dero.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's same for me too. I understand. I don't blame anyone for not wanting to believe it or not believing it and stuff. But the fact that I've told a few of my friends that are Christian that I've trusted over the years since I moved out here to North Carolina, that I've talked to them about it, told them my story and all. And my buddy Jacob, I worked with him the day after I heard your story. I was kind of freaked out. We were out at lunch, and I was just kind of in a daze, thinking about it. And I told him, I was like, "Hey, you remember me telling you the story about the elephant heads?" And he's like, "Yeah, he remembers. He believes me. He's a Christian. He knows that stuff's real." So I told him your story, and he was just like, "Whoa, that's really, he's." He believed it. He could see, he could understand it and appreciate what I'm going through. So, for that reason alone, I appreciate you going out there and putting your.
I mean, most people when they watch it, you can tell when someone's making something up. You can tell I'm not making it up.
Yeah, that's it for sure. Yeah, I've listened to your story now probably 6 or 7 different times, and you haven't changed a detail of it. And that's one of the things I look for. I can spot a liar pretty far away when you hear the story a couple times.
It just imprints on your mind, man. I mean, you can't forget it. It's like, oh my gosh. What? I mean, I just remember sitting there staring, and I wasn't like fighting against it or anything. You'd think I would be, but
you couldn't. Yeah,
I was just sitting there looking. I couldn't believe my brain couldn't catch it. Sorry, hiccuping there at the same time. My brain couldn't catch up with what I was seeing. It's like, my gosh. And I thought back on that later, just sitting there staring, wasn't doing nothing. It was like, dang.
Yeah.
And then when that door opens, it just laid another layer of crazy on it. It's like, dang, now what's this?
Yeah.
2 things that's unbelievable. And then the roar happens, and I it scares them, and yeah.
And so one of the other things I've mentioned to you in the email I sent, but I don't know if you looked it up, at the Cahokia Mounds area out there. I told you I lived, right north or directly north of that big mound. The logo for that area, there's a stone out there that they found. They found a few of them. I think they call it the Birdman stone, or I can't remember what the official term for it is. But if you type in Cahokia Mounds, I mean, it's one of the first images that would come up on Google images, and it's kind of a stone that had a carving of what it looks like a bird-headed man. That's what a lot of people describe it as, because it has wings behind it, but his nose is just really long. It's just a dude with a really long, pointy nose.
Huh.
And, it's not the same. It's not the exact same as what Deros are described as, but like when I started thinking about your theory on, your nose and ears never quit growing, so if you were 500, 600 years old, how big would your nose get?
Yeah,
And
that's just a theory now. So I mean,
right, it is a theory, but I mean that makes a lot more sense than a lot of other stuff I've heard.
Yeah,
that's kind of the it's kind of like Occam's razor. Like the simplest answer is usually the right one, and that to me seems like the simplest answer. It doesn't really. It's not.
They claimed that they, in Shaver's stories, it claimed that they lived a really long time, and
right.
And the giants lived on with them at first, and I think they moved to the surface or something. It's been a while since I made those videos. And
yeah.
And of course, we got stories about giants, and even in the Bible.
Yep. And so that's the other thing I was telling you about the giants in Cahokia Mounds. That area, I mean, I know there was giants out there. There had to have been. My dad's got some friends that are a friend that's an antique dealer out there. He goes around to the gun shows and deals, antiques and ivory, antique knives, antique guns, all that stuff. Well, he's got a real cool house. You can imagine an antique dealer's house. Well, for decorations in his front yard, he has some axe heads that are, probably 100 pounds. Some of them are huge.
Wow.
Like maybe like 20 inches, 25 inches long, and like I said, if you attached a stick to one of these things, me and you. You seem like kind of an average-sized guy. Me and you would not be able to pick these things up and use them.
Right. Yeah.
And they're the most perfectly shaped stone axe head you can imagine. That took a lot of time to make.
Right.
And there's back then it probably would have took a couple weeks to make something like that at the least.
Yeah.
So the idea that you would make that as a ceremonial piece, or that's what they try to say, that they're ceremonial pieces, or the other dumb theory I heard was that they would make them that big and then they would break them up later and make smaller ones out of the big ones.
That'd be a waste of time.
At all. Oh yeah, it'd be such a waste of time. That doesn't make any sense. But I'm telling you, if you go to Cahokia Mounds, last time I was there, they had a few of them still that were bigger than what an average man could hold. But they're all over that area. They found them. So I mean, that's enough evidence to me. But besides everything else, I mean, there's a lot more evidence out there if you start getting into that sort of thing.
Well, I had someone send me some pictures of some caves, and there's like a bunch of different openings, man, and some of them look like they were not natural, like they were made.
Right.
And is
it the cave in Honduras, or is it not? Not Honduras.
I think it was like in Switzerland.
In Switzerland? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just saw one that was recently that was discovered a while ago. Apparently Von Daniken put it in his book, which I don't really agree with everything he says, but they found these big caves with these tablets in it, like giant gold tablets with a bunch of weird writing on them and a bunch of weird pictographs and a few crowns, like, king crowns that are out of gold, I'm pretty sure, and they're huge. I mean, the size of, it'd go on someone's head that was, like twice the size of us.
Right.
And a lot of those caverns are cut out. Man, I'm trying to remember the name of that. It's got a real weird name. I think it's in South America. But I found that pretty easily, too. Just type in giants and golden tablets in the cave and stuff. But about the whole nose and ears thing, what I was, I don't know, it's just kind of been sticking with me about the idea of, like, goblins even. Goblins always have big ears and big noses. That's kind of the main distinctive factor to a lot of these underground creatures that are allegedly out there.
Right. Gosh, I was trying to find those pictures, see where they're from, but it's something like Switzerland. And it was interesting too because there were several of these openings he was finding, and they didn't look like natural caves. It was
right.
And he said that he kind of went in them, and they go on and on. He's kind of scared to keep going because he's get lost or something.
Yeah.
Which I would be too.
Well,
Yeah. But you had a real long piece of yarn,
Yeah, we've got a cave out here. If there's not a lot of information on it, if you said you're in Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right over in Boone, North Carolina. It's up in the mountains, and Cranberry is the name of the town, Cranberry, and it's called the Cranberry Iron Mine. It was allegedly, they say it was an iron mine from the Civil War, and which I could believe they were mining iron out of it, but from the looks of how big this thing is, it's hard to believe that it was all just done by dudes in the 1800s, and it's just enormous. It's a huge cave, and you're not supposed to go in there. They got a sign up that says there's white nose syndrome, there's like a fungal infection on the bats. They don't want you to go in there, but I kind of went around. There's another entrance that you can kind of go into the back of it, and exploring around it. The bottom levels are all flooded out, and it's just crystal clear water. And I don't know how far down it goes down, but eventually you come to a giant metal grate, it's just closed off. It's just like a giant metal bars that are keeping you from going any further deep into the cave. But someone had dug underneath it at some point. There was like a small hole in the corner of the gate that something or someone had, dug out, crawled underneath this gate, and got in or out of it. I don't know which way, but I've kind of been half tempted to go back and try to see how far down it goes and what's all in there.
Yeah, cave-in is supposed to actually be against the law now.
Yeah, I remember you saying that in the video, and I can imagine they've done something like that. But
yeah, there's one cave that I used to go in when I was younger, and went back there, and it's got like a iron, fence in front of it.
Yeah. I remember you telling that story too, and that's what reminded me of this, this Cranberry mine, and thinking, are they doing that to save people's lives from going in, or are they just doing that to keep something out?
I don't know. It seems kind of weird to me.
It is. It's real weird. 'Cause I had a buddy, like this whole area out here in Boone, North Carolina, it's not a super widely known area, but there's just a lot of weird stuff out here, man. I don't know if it's like a witch coven, or a lot of people are into the occult, and there's a lot of weird satanic stuff. If you look hard enough for it, you'll see it. And NASA used to have a tower up on top of this mountain overlooking Boone. It's called Howard's Knob, but there used to be a NASA satellite. I think it was I don't remember if it was satellite or if it was just like a giant antenna. But NASA had a little station up on top of this mountain, and at that same mountain there was this house. They tore it down a while ago. It was a professor from App State who made the house, but we all just call it the Satan House because it looked like a satanic house. That's the only way to describe it. It looked like Anton LaVey's house in San Francisco, but it was really big. It was like 3 stories and super creepy, like all black, big red doors, and it was dilapidated. The guy had got arrested by the U.S. Marshals for tax evasion or something like that, and they had taken his property from him. And it was pretty torn down last time I checked it out. Kids gone in there and partied, and threw beer bottles everywhere, broke windows and all that stuff. But someone drew like a giant devil effigy on the wall when last time I went in there, and a bunch of upside down pentagrams and stuff. So it's just there's just something out here in this area that's that people like that are drawn to, I guess.
No, you said when you were a kid they were telling you, you were gonna be like the savior of the world and all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah, and the thing is, like, this is the weird part. Like, when I told you earlier about seeing the elephant head, and I remember them talking to me.
Yeah.
Now, I don't remember words that they used, but that's the impression I got they were telling me. And then when I had that DMT trip, I know that's what they're telling. I remember them telling me that. It was almost like, it was so close to the same, that feeling, that, like, just talking you up and telling, because I don't really remember being terrified. Like I said, I wasn't really traumatized.
It's because it's so weird. I mean, I remember when I had the encounter, dude, I was just staring at the thing. I wasn't, like, scared in a way, because I couldn't figure out what it was to be, to start being scared. I was kind of scared after.
Yeah,
I mean, during the whole experience, it's like, I just couldn't quit looking. It was like, dang.
Yeah.
I don't know any other way to say it. It just, I couldn't quit looking at it. It's, I mean, if something had to intervene, I don't know how long I would have sat there staring before I started fighting. But I probably wouldn't have been able to sit there staring because it was about to take me somewhere. And, that's what they do, according to other people. And, I mean, I've covered a little bit of that, and you're fortunate to get away, I can tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, one of the other things I've kind of been thinking about your whole story about the fungus, you were talking about the blue around the nose and all.
Yeah, someone in California, they kind of studied the Dero kind of topic, and they knew some people that knew Shaver.
Okay.
And that person had, like, recently died or something like that, I think, is what they said. But, so they knew quite a bit about that, the stories of, and they said that blue was a fungal thing, a fungus deal.
Yeah.
I mean, when I saw it, it was like...
That's what's taking out the bats.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say, that when you was talking about that, I'll just let you finish what you were saying instead of interrupting you, but it sure did make a blue-looking area, and it had those creases that went up and down like it was... I mean, it looked like it was meant, that, you know what I mean? But, no one else has ever talked about that, so maybe this one that came for me, had fungal issue. Because Shaver never said nothing about that, and the other guy, I don't recall.
Yeah, that does make sense, though, that something like that, if it happens to the bats, whatever else is living down there.
It's crazy to find people that, someone who has seen it, because it's kind of a rare thing. Very few encounters have I ever heard of.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's kind of always got me is, like, the rarity of it, because I've got a few other friends that have had interaction. One of my best friends out here, Josh, he's a Christian too and has been his whole life, but he saw a reptilian guy when he was, I think he said he was about 10 or 12, 10 or 11, I guess, in Norfolk, Virginia. Him and his mom were hanging out at nighttime, and he said he looked over. Him and his mom both saw it. And, looked over, and there was like a guy staring in their window, and he said it looked like a person, but his eyes were like super like slanted, and his face was kind of elongated like a snake.
Oh,
that's how he described it. Yeah, and said he had like reptilian eyes.
That
it
would
was
be
just
scary.
Like and he said him and his mom both saw it, and they both stopped like dead in their tracks, and like he stopped and pointed at it, and then his mom turned around and stopped dead in her tracks and like was jaw dropped, and then the thing like ran off, and he said immediately he just like ran after it, and he said he went out the front door and went around to the side of his house. As soon as he turned the corner of his house, he saw the thing turn around the next corner of his house, and as soon as he got around that corner, it was gone.
What was he going to do if he caught it?
I don't know. I don't think he even knows. I think he just, I think
what
he
I
was
just
just
do?
so, yeah.
Ow. Yeah,
And,
I don't believe I'll be chasing a reptilian. But
yeah. I've got another buddy out here. I haven't talked to him for a while, but he was joining a fraternity out here Appalachian State. He got into a fraternity, you know, was a pledge, I guess, or whatever. And I don't know if they told him to do this to be part of the fraternity or what, but they do stuff like this out here. There's a big bridge out here on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's called the Viaduct, the Blue Ridge Parkway Viaduct. If anyone looks that up, you'll see it's a really big bridge. I think it was made in the 70s sometime. It was, you know, they were bragging about it's a feat of engineering and all that. It's there was the first bridge that they made in this style, and it's hollow. So it's a giant tube that is flat on top, and it's made of a bunch of concrete sections. And on the inside of it, it's about, I'd say maybe like probably like 7 foot tall, and maybe like a 10-foot wide corridor down the center of this bridge. And they've had it blocked off for a long time. Like a few times I've gone, it's the state's gone out there and blocked off the entrance. There's like 2 little porthole doors that open up to go into it, like access ports for maintenance or whatever. Yeah. For this bridge. And it's pretty long. I'd say maybe like 500 or 600 yards long. It kind of curves around a little bit. But once you're inside of the thing, it's really creepy. You know, it's just kind of, it feels like you're in a cave. You know, it has that same kind of feel to it. And, of course, you know, kids go in there and spray paint satanic stuff all over the walls and 666. And someone spray painted entering hell, like right above the entrance, like whenever you go into the first little gateway, or the first little room. It's kind of sectioned off in little rooms, and you got to go through a little hole to go to the next one. And so I guess they were dared to go into this, or you know, they were daring themselves. I don't know if it was for the fraternity or not, but either way, him and 2 of his buddies, they go into this thing. And the first time they tried to go, they had their iPhones for flashlights, and none of them really were, you know, down for it, and they were all creeped out. So they leave, and then they had, you know, started calling each other names, and, oh, you're a pussy, and you didn't want to do it, and all this stuff. But they come back with actual real flashlights, and to prove to themselves, oh, no, we're real men, you know, we can do this. So they go back in, and one of his buddies, that the first one to chicken out the first time, goes first. He's trailblazing and shining the light. All of a sudden, like when they're halfway through, he drops his light and starts running back to the beginning, start freaking out. And so his buddies, you know, my friend Fernando and his other buddy, they're sitting there like, well, what the hell is this? And they look down the corridor, and what he described was what he said it was black. He said he thought it was about the size of a dog, and it was, at first it was sitting on its hind legs on the ground and had pointed ears and yellow eyes, and it was black. He said it was, you know, he described it as like a shadow people, but it wasn't a person. It was like a half animal hybrid type deal or something. It had pointy ears and yellow eyes and really long legs. And he said it started to climb up the wall as he was looking at it, and just started climbing up the wall and climbed upside down and was staring at him the whole time. And just like they ran out of there. And, you know, I believe he wasn't saved. I haven't talked to him for a while, but, you know, he was, this guy wasn't saved, and he was really freaked out about the whole situation. I remember, you know, after it happened, he came to my friend Josh and told him about it, and was, you know, visibly shaken up, scared. You know, Josh prayed for him and all that stuff, and tried to, you know, tell him, like, you know, you just saw a demon or whatever. But the idea that it was in this bridge, you know, the more I've been thinking about that, it's, you know, there's something to the whole idea of cave trolls or bridge trolls. You know, the trolls that always hide under the bridges. Yeah. And, you know, charge you a toll. And it's kind of the same environment as a cave. You know, it's just like a
You ever see that video where I had the woman came on and her son was seeing a dog man, but it was like a shadow dog deal?
No, I haven't yet. I've seen a few of your videos with the dog man stuff, and I've been wanting to get into those next. Because yeah, those things are definitely out there too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there seems to be ones that are like physical. You know, the Dero I encountered was physical. You know,
was definitely physical. Yeah.
Yeah, he grabbed me, and he had real hands.
I think
real instrument.
The way I think it works, and you know, this is kind of speculation on my part, obviously, but I think that they all are physical, and they have means of projection, like, the Shaver talked about them being able to project holograms and stuff, but
Right.
I think there's something else, they have that, some form of technology to interact with the surface without ever leaving their...
Yeah. Well, that one was in my room, for
underground.
real. Now, the shadow being, he opened a door.
Right, yeah.
And so they've got ways of getting there,
Yeah, and open portals and stuff.
Yeah. The shadow thing was, spiritual, but the other thing wasn't. And the deal where they both came at the same time, it just always stumped me. Like, were they working together?
Yeah, they're working together. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're definitely. That's what I believe. And I don't know how. Not to get off subject, I think it's still on subject. I don't know how much you know about the cloning centers. Have you ever researched
I've heard
much
of
about
it,
the cloning centers?
Yeah, I've watched some videos on it.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't get too far into the guy's testimony, but Donald Marshall.
Yeah, he's the one I heard it from.
Yeah. He's got his own issues, and I feel like I've talked to him a couple of times on Twitter before about some of my experiences, because that's kind of the other half of my story is the cloning centers, and that's after I did get saved, the demonic stuff stopped happening to me as much. I wasn't noticing it or feeling influenced as much, but the cloning center stuff, I was learning about it, and then I heard Donald Marshall's testimony and looking into that, and you could try to disprove his testimony all you want, and I haven't been able to. I mean, there's some stuff about what he says that, I mean, if anyone else were saying it, they'd be getting sued by a lot of famous people. I guess that's one of the that's one of the telltale signs.
Yeah, I mean, that always
me,
stood out to me too. Is like, darn, well, he's going to end up with some people on him if he, if he's making this up.
Right. Well, the guy, Dave Mustaine from Megadeth, treats him like the plague. If I came out and said what he was saying about Dave Mustaine and had millions of followers, I'd get sued for sure. Because they'd say, "Oh, you're lying, and we're going to sue you for defamation." They treat him like the plague, and they act like he doesn't even exist. And he's got millions of people that watch videos about him, and followers on Facebook and all that stuff, and he's got his own crew, and so
it seems like maybe so that's how they get rich and famous.
Yeah,
because it seems like I never can get ahead.
Oh yeah, for
I ain't
sure.
got nothing helping me. That's for dang sure.
Yeah, you got to be in the club to do it, and that's kind of I knew that I get the feeling that if I would have continued down my road and not gotten saved, and they probably would have.
Yeah, stayed with Freemasons.
They wanted to use me. They were grooming me for something.
Yeah.
That's just the feeling that I get. Like they were trying to use me for something, and
the whole most of them are business owners and things like that. They can help each other,
Yeah, and that's what that's what masonry is really for. They even guys that don't believe in the occult stuff of masonry, they'll say, "Oh, it's just for networking,"
Yeah.
And the worse of a person you are, the higher up they let you go.
Because I was friends with this one guy. He was a Christian too, but I did a lot of work for him and stuff. He owned a bed and breakfast, and I was helping him a lot. And he got invited to go down to the Mason meeting place there, and we went in, and I saw it's like a throne sitting in there, and then a bunch of chairs sitting around. It's like, dang, this don't seem right to me, man. The altar and stuff, It's like, you shouldn't have an altar in here and a throne, and all that.
Yep.
Who's the king up in here kind of deal. And And they was asking him to join, and they wouldn't ask me. They said, we can't ask you. But he knew I was saved. It's like, I know.
Yeah.
I said, I know. I said, my father wouldn't let me join anyway. Is what I told him. And then when we left, I told my buddy, I said, man, you can't join that, dude. And he said, I know. And
yeah, that's good. One of the creepy things about the thrones and all that, the way that they have the lodge set up, the worshipful master, that's what they call the head guy of the lodge or whatever, he sits in the east, right? And there's the way the lodge is set up, it's northeast, southwest, it's always facing east.
They had a poster on the wall and it had all the rankings on it, and it went all
Right,
the way
yeah.
up to stuff like that. And it, just the titles alone were blasphemous,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Calling anyone master is no good or worshipful.
Yeah, I
but
ain't worshiping nothing except the Lord,
Yeah, the creepy part about the way that the chairs are set up, the north. So there's an office of the east, west, and south. There's no office of the north, and they'll tell you, well, that's because the north is a place of darkness, so no one sits in the north. But in satanic circles, they leave a chair open for Satan.
No
way. That's the reason. Yeah, that's
I would
like
be scared I would be scared to join something like that, dude, because of the encounters I've had. Like when I was 5.
Yeah.
I know, those things can come after you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's why they didn't want you. They
I mean, people that join these things, don't they get attacked? I mean,
well, I guess it depends on how far down the hole you are, because I imagine they all do in some way, shape, or form. But if you're playing your part and you're fulfilling your role, they just kind of let you ease on by. And I feel like a lot of people have these experiences, whether it's at the cloning centers, or whether it's just demonic, or some type of technology these Deros have or whatever. I feel like they make you forget. That's like the best way I can kind of put it. They're probably, the
alien abduction thing, same.
Yeah, they're raping people left and right, and then wiping their brains clean, and they just don't really remember. They just have like a, maybe an inkling that something happened to them. But
I'm scared to get hypnotized, but I kind of always wonder what, like, especially when the one where me and my sister, she asked me one time, she goes, well, you know what, I always wondered about that? And I was like, I kind of didn't want to know. It's like, no, what, And she said, what happened right after? And that's the first time I really ever thought about it. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, because you just remember, like, after it happened, you remember waking up the next morning?
Yeah, I went to bite it, and that's all I remember.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that thing that came after you that time, did you see its legs?
No, it came out of the wall and kind of came out above me. And he grabbed me by the arm, and I mainly was looking at his hand, and when I went to bite him, I got mesmerized by because it was like putting your hand on a flashlight, where light makes your hand look red. His whole being was like that, but he was sticking out of the wall from the waist up. And my sister got a better look because she could, she was at the end of the hall looking, and she said it was sticking out of the wall from the waist up, and it had like a goatee and the curled ram horns, and and that's kind of, I don't really remember anything after it, but I sure do remember looking at his fingers, the wrinkles in like knuckles, and the fingernails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you saw the head too, right? And goat
just
horns?
Barely, because it was kind of up above me, and I was more worried about biting it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you said your sister saw it, didn't she?
Yeah, she got a good look at it.
Did she? Have you ever had her draw a picture or anything of it?
No, she said she could though.
Yeah, that'd be something. People would probably like to see that.
She said, I remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, it's unforgettable. You ain't gonna forget. I mean, we forgot what happened after, but I don't know why that is.
Because even the Bible does talk about satyrs. That's a from what you described.
I mean, it may have had goat-like legs and feet.
Yeah, I imagine it did.
Yeah. I'm glad it didn't come on out of the wall, because...
So that's so when I told you about that Satan house up here, it's 448 Howard's Knob. If anyone types that into Google, that's it'll come up. It's torn down now, but there's still a few videos on YouTube of kids walking around, and you'd see how creepy it was. But on the back wall of it, last time I went there, someone had drawn, I'd call it devil effigy, but it was a satyr. It had goat horns, goat legs, and a tail, and like reptilian slit eyes, and a pitchfork. And someone had drawn that picture on the back of the wall of the Satan house.
Yeah.
And they wrote, "Let this house rot. It got what it deserves." And this was like right before they tore it down. a couple months before they tore it down.
Wow.
So, those things, I can't, and not to be vulgar, it had a huge member drawn on it too, like a, big erect penis drawn on
really?
there. Yeah, and then, so the crazy thing about that happened, trying to remember, it was a few years ago now, but I remember the movie. It's a horrible movie. I don't recommend anyone sees it, but you could just look up stills of the demon in the movie This Is the End. I'm pretty sure is what it's called. It was a real dumb movie about the apocalypse. It's all the
I've never been able to watch those kind of movies because of the encounter I had.
Yeah.
Scary movies. I ain't watching them.
But that's what attacks the kid in it. I can't remember the kid's name. He's in Superbad, and kind of a fat kid with curly hair. Can't remember his name, but he gets attacked by that same thing. It's a satyr. Goat legs, horns, and a huge wiener, and it rapes him basically in the movie. It's horrible, and it's a comedy too. That's the world we're living in.
Ain't nothing funny about that.
They make jokes out of it. No, there's nothing funny about it. But that's that's how the devil works. He gets, and that's where the word satire even comes from. Satyr.
Oh,
it's
really?
satire.
Huh.
Yeah, it's satyr and satire. It's basically the same word.
In Hebrew, it means like hairy goat.
Yeah.
Cause the goat legs. I guess that might be where.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Pan, the goat, the
right.
Greek god Pan, and Cernunnos. That's another name. That's where CERN gets their name from. Is this goat-headed god that they worship out there in that area? And what is it, Krampus? Have you ever seen the Krampus Fest?
No.
Krampus is a goat-headed, monster, big hairy monster guy that kidnaps kids around Christmas time. It's Santa Claus's right-hand man. It's like it goes back to old Germanic legends of their Christmas, whatever they call it. I forgot, Yuletide festivals or whatever they call it. But they have I think it's December 8th. They have the Krampus Fest, and they got guys that dress up in these real elaborate goat costumes, with the big scary masks and horns.
Yeah, I think I've seen something about that before. See, I just wouldn't be able to partake in that kind of thing because I'd be afraid I'd be inviting
I wouldn't
something
either.
back.
Yeah.
I mean, you can invite something, you start doing, something stupid like that, man. And next thing you know,
that's
when it's real and you've had those encounters, you ain't playing.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah,
I would never touch a Ouija board or anything like that.
Oh no, yeah. And that's one of the other things too. I didn't get into that, but I mean, my I remember when I was a kid, me and my sister had my stepmom had a Ouija board when my dad got remarried, and there was a few times that me and my sister and my stepbrother sat in the back room and played around with the Ouija board when I was I was probably 6 years old, not knowing anything, not knowing what it was.
Right.
And I got I bought a tarot deck when I lived in Hawaii. When I was stationed in the Army, I had just got a couple new tattoos. I've got Roman numeral 13 tattooed on my neck. Real obvious. Big 13 tattooed on my neck. And on the other side of my neck, I've got a 5-petaled cherry blossom, like a flower cherry blossom.
Yeah.
And I just got these tattoos, and I was walking around and bought a tarot deck because it was on sale at a bookstore. And I was just like, oh, that'd be cool. I never, I just wanted to look at the pictures more than anything. I wasn't saved, but I wasn't trying to contact anything. But I bought this deck, and I was going through it, and the 13th tarot card is death. And it has a big Roman numeral 13 at the top, and it's death riding a pale horse. It's a skeleton in a suit of armor, and he's holding a flag that has a 5-petaled cherry blossom flower on it.
Oh, wow.
The exact same tattoo that I got on the other side of my neck. So, all that happened to me in one day, and that was, talk about like that gut-wrenching feeling you get when you're being messed with by something else from somewhere else. I don't know what it was. I don't know if that was, something influencing me in the machine or a demon telling me to do stuff or what the case is. But there's there's a old Danzig song, Johnny Cash, or it was a Danzig song that Johnny Cash covered, but it's called "I Got 13 Tattooed on My Neck." and I had no idea about that song even. You know, never heard of it. Never heard of Danzig before when I got this tattoo, and didn't know Johnny Cash covered it. But you know, it's there's just too many coincidences like that for me to dismiss as.
Well, the good news is when you get saved, the Lord will save you still,
Yeah.
no matter what's happened or even what
I know.
tattoo
Yeah,
you gotten. That's
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's just a harsh reminder for me, though. You know, like I said, I don't want to be a victim or anything. I'm not playing that card, but looking in the mirror, and I forget that I have them even sometimes, and you know, I don't blame people for looking at me different than
Well, you
someone
can
who
get
doesn't
cover-up
have them.
tattoos too, man. They do a pretty good job sometimes. I know of people that
Yeah.
have tattoos and they got another tattoo and it blended right in. You never even could see the other thing. It's like, dang, that's pretty good, you know.
Yeah, and I've thought about that too. And you wouldn't, you know, it's like not that I don't know. It's kind of in the back of my mind. I feel like, well, the Bible says not to get them, you know, and it's like I know I've already got them, and I've got unfinished ones that are, you know, I just don't even want to go get finished because it's like the whole. I don't know. There's something to the ritual of it too. You know, getting, you know, marring your skin and pushing ink into it, and you know, people don't even really know what's in that ink. You know, that's another weird thing people can look into. There's you know, a lot of the ink recipes are secret. A lot of those companies, they keep it a secret.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, probably
But,
it's more secret because they have ink that make the tattoo stay bright longer or something, you know.
Right, yeah.
Not that it's
Something to that effect, but
you know, changing your DNA or something, you know, not that.
yeah, yeah, probably not, but I can imagine some Satanist or occultist out there, you know, adding something
Yeah,
to that stuff.
I mean,
you know, like Lady Gaga even has she has blood and semen in her perfume, you know.
No way.
I don't know if you heard about,
Gee
you know.
whiz.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like synthetic blood and semen, but she's got a perfume that, yeah, that's, you know.
I mean, the
so
thought
they
of
do
even having
weird,
synthetic in her is crazy.
Yeah, she said that she had it synthesized, and that, you know, they put aborted fetal tissue in Pepsi and, you know, vaccines and stuff like that. So I'm just, you know, the more I just don't know about something, I just don't want to put it in me, you know.
Dang, that sounds scary.
Yeah.
Golly. Yeah, I don't even want to know. The Lord said He'll cleanse anything that I eat and drink, though.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's true.
You know,
That is
he
true.
almost has
Yeah.
to, because, I mean, what can you eat and
Yeah,
what can you drink, you know?
Yeah.
You know, we aren't all able to grow and raise our cattle and, you know, stuff like that. We have to buy stuff at the, you know, store these days.
Yeah.
I don't really
Yeah,
know.
you're right. You know, if you bless something before you eat it, you know, He does promise to make it clean.
All right. Well, man, I appreciate you telling your story. We've been on
for
here
sure,
for
man.
about a little over an hour. It's going to be a good one, man. I never really hardly get much Dero stuff, so
Yeah.
I appreciate you giving
Yeah,
that.
I wish if I ever get anything else or have any memories of it, you know, because, you know, honestly, sometimes I do have missing time
Right.
from my, you know, few years back, and even when I was a kid, like when I told you I was in DMOA, I don't remember, like,
And
really
even
doing
when you're
much
saved,
anything.
you can have an attack come at you. It's not going to be able to do a whole lot, but
they'll still try.
Since I lived in this apartment, I had something once slammed my bedroom door, and I could hear it stomping across the room at me, and then like a big wind hit me. And I instantly went and prayed. It was when I first moved in the apartment. I hadn't really prayed over the apartment, you know.
Yeah.
But I did then. I did right immediately after that, and that's never happened again. You know, like, well, I forgot to pray over this place.
Yeah, that's the thing people need to remember is Jesus, you know, He does have the ultimate authority over these things. And
set a hedge up.
There's even a good...
Set a hedge up like Job, you know. Job, you know, that when God asked Satan, if you consider my servant Job, he said, you know I can't get to him. You have a hedge up around him.
Yeah.
You know? So that hedge, man, that's a good thing to have.
And if anyone out there is, I don't know if have you seen that documentary, The Nightmare?
Nuh-uh.
It's a pretty good documentary. I'd recommend anyone out there who's, you know, not familiar with the subject or anything, the shadow people, even they really get into that in this documentary, and people having the sleep paralysis. I guess it's more about sleep paralysis than anything. But the key thing to get away, there's an Asian woman in the documentary who was having, a shadow people attack her every night, and she says that she cried out to Jesus, and that's when it stopped.
Oh yeah.
And it's one of those things that they don't dwell on that. That's the thing. It's like she's like one of the only people in the documentary that got them to stop, and that's how she did it.
Yeah, and, they don't tell you that
they
much.
Don't,
and even in
they
the
don't want you
UFO
to
abduction
know.
deal, they know about it, and they
Yep.
they don't bring
it up. Yeah, they know about it, and they keep it. Yeah, they don't want to bring it up, for sure. But that's what, if anyone listening to this, that's what I want them to take out of it is, Christ is in charge.
And something comes at you, call on Jesus.
He'll save you. Yeah, he'll save you.
Yeah.
It's true, 100%.
And even if you can't talk, if they paralyze you, say it in your mind, it'll still help you.
Yeah, just think about him, do whatever you can to cry out to him, and that's the only hope you got.
Amen.
It really is.
Amen. Well, thank you very much, man. God bless you, brother. And
thank you. You too, Brenton. I'll keep in touch with you, man. I'll keep your email around, and
cool deal.
call me you can call me anytime. You got my phone number. Or if you meet anyone else, that's having a hard time, and they want someone else to talk to, I wouldn't turn someone down for.
Yeah. And everybody out there in YouTube land, thank you for listening. God bless you. And if you want to contribute, you can always go to PayPal me in the description. It helps me keep things going. All right. God bless and bye bye.
Thanks a lot, Brenton. God bless. Bye.